Story 1. The shadows in Pine Barrens. Brace yourself for this, because I've never told this to anyone outside my family, and even now I am shaking just typing it out. My name, Agius Matt. I grew up in southern New Jersey, not far from the Pine Barrens. If you know anything about that place, then you already know it. There's hundreds of square miles of endless trees, swamps, and dirt roads that seem to go on forever. People always joke about the Jersey Devil, but I'm telling you right now, there are far worse things in those woods. It was 2016, I was 23 years old, and my best friend Tyler convinced me to go camping deep in the Barrens with him and his older brother Brian. They were both hardcore outdoors guys, me. Not so much, but I figured why not? We parked Tyler's beat-up pickup on this unmarked dirt road and hiked for hours until we were completely isolated. No phone service, no chance of running into another person, just wall-to-wall forest. It was late fall, so the nights dropped below freezing, but we packed enough to last 3 days. I remember setting up our tents in this small clearing surrounded by pines that looked like they'd been there for centuries, thick twisted branches like claws reaching over us. The first night seemed normal. We built a fire, cooked hot dogs, drank a couple beers, and swapped dumb ghost stories. I'll admit I felt spooked just being out there in that much darkness. You can need to understand how black the woods get. Until you've stood in the middle of them with no light pollution, it is not just dark, it's swallowing like the forest eats the light whole. I wish I could say the worst part of the trip was my nerves, but around 3 a.m., I woke up to this sound, and it still makes my stomach twist. When I think about it, it wasn't an animal sound, it wasn't the wind. It was a voice, low and broken, like someone whispering my name just outside the thin nylon of my tent. Matt! I froze, I couldn't breathe. I just laid there listening. My first thought was that Tyler or Brian was screwing with me, but the whisper came again, closer this time. Matt, come out. And then I heard the crunch of footsteps circling my tent. Slow, deliberate footsteps dragging through the pine needles. I wanted to yell, but my throat locked up. All I could do was clutch my knife and stare at the zipper, praying it didn't move. Then just as suddenly as it started, the footsteps stopped, dead silent, so heavy, I swear, I could hear my own blood rushing in my ears. I stayed awake until the sun came up, shaking like a leaf. When I finally crawled out, Tyler and Brian were still asleep in their tents. Neither of them had left camp that night. And when I told them what I heard, they laughed, said I was half dreaming. But I know I wasn't dreaming. And if I was, then explain the trail of bare footprints circling my tent in the dirt. I tried to brush it off the next morning, even though my hands were still shaking. But as the sun came up, I realized something that made me sick. The footprints circling my tent weren't just bare. They were huge, way bigger than any normal human foot, almost deformed, like the toes dragged unevenly through the dirt. I pointed it out to Tyler, but he just shrugged, said maybe I'd stepped out in the night without remembering it. The problem is, I hadn't. My boots were still tied shut and untouched outside my tent. We spent most of that day hiking through the woods trying to hunt squirrels. Brian swore up and down he heard something following us the whole time, snapping twigs just out of sight. We tried to laugh it off, but I could see it in his eyes. He was unsettled too. That night we built the fire bigger, hoping the light would keep us comfortable. We sat around telling jokes, but none of us were really laughing. The air was thick, like the forest was holding its breath when we finally went to sleep. I remember lying in my tent, eyes wide open, knife clutched to my chest. Around 2 in the morning, the forest erupted with this ungodly scream. It wasn't human, it wasn't animal. It was something in between, high, pitched but guttural, like a woman screaming underwater. We all bolted out of our tents, pointing flashlights in every direction. Nothing but endless trees. Tyler swore he saw something move between the pines, tall and hunched over, with arms almost scraping the ground. We tried to convince ourselves it was a deer, but deep down, we knew better. The scream came again, this time farther away, like it was retreating. We didn't sleep after that. We sat shoulder to shoulder by the fire, weapons in hand, until daylight. The third day we debated packing up early. I wanted to leave right then, but Brian pushed to stay, said it would be embarrassing to bail. Just because of noises, reluctantly I agreed, but my gut told me it was the worst mistake of my life. We went further out hunting again, when we stumbled across something that froze us in place. Hanging from a low pine branch was a shredded piece of clothing, an old dirty hoodie stiff with dried blood. We argued about whether it was hunters messing around or maybe a lost hiker, but then we noticed the hoodie wasn't a tee weathered. The blood was dark but fresh within the last week or two. Brian wanted to take it back to camp, but I refused the second I touched it. I felt like something was watching us, like it wanted me to pick it up. That night the forest felt different. It wasn't just dark. It was alive. We built our fire as high as we could, but it felt pointless around midnight. We heard movement, heavy footsteps pacing just outside the reach of the firelight back and forth, circling us like a predator. We shouted into the dark, warning whoever it was that we were armed. Silence then, out of nowhere, a rock the size of my fist came hurtling out of the dark, landing just feet from the fire. I thought Brian was going to snap. He screamed into the woods, demanding whoever was out there show themselves. No answer. Then suddenly, from beyond the firelight, two glowing eyes appeared, just hovering in the dark, too far up to belong to any animal I know of. They didn't blink, they didn't move, just stared. Tyler fired a warning shot into the trees, and the eyes vanished instantly. The forest went dead silent, but that silence was somehow worse than the noise. We sat there, frozen, sweat dripping, even though the night air was freezing. Then slowly, almost mockingly, the whisper came back. That same voice from the first night, stretched and broken. Mutt, except this time it wasn't outside my tent. It was right behind me at the edge of the firelight. I spun around, but there was nothing. Just trees swaying in the cold wind. We couldn't take it anymore. At first light, we packed up camp and bolted back through the forest. We ran half the way to the truck, but when we finally reached it, there were fresh footprints in the dirt circling the vehicle, bare, huge and warped like before, as if it had been waiting for us the whole time. We peeled out and I swore never to step foot in the Pine Barrens again. I don't know what that thing was. All I know is it knew my name and it wanted me to follow it into the trees. Story 2. The Lost Cabin in the Rockies. I don't care if anyone believes this or not, but I need to put it out there. My name is Jason. I am from Colorado, and earlier this year in 2024, something happened to me that I still can't wrap my head around. I've hiked most of the Rockies since I was a kid. I know the trails like the back of my hand, but what I found on that trip should not exist. I had taken a week off work to go solo hunting deep in the San Juan Mountains. Nothing new for me. I carried my rifle, my pack, the usual gear. I parked at a ranger station, hiked about 12 miles in, and set up camp near a ridge. My plan was to stalk elk in the valleys below. But on the second day, I stumbled across something that never should have been there. A cabin. I froze the second I saw it, because I had memorized every map of the area. There were no structures for miles. The Forest Service confirmed it later. But in that moment, all I knew was it didn't belong. It was tucked back between thick pines. A squat log cabin, maybe one room. No chimney. No windows. The wood was old, but not rotted, like someone had built it and abandoned it recently. The door was cracked open just slightly, like it was waiting for me. I should be turned around right then, but curiosity got the better of me. I pushed the door and it creaked open. The smell hit me first, sour and rotten, like wet wood mixed with something metallic. The cabin was empty except for a single chair in the center, facing the door. I swear it felt like someone had been sitting there waiting for me, scratched into the seat with a knife, with 3 words burned into my brain forever: do not leave. The second I read it, my stomach turned ice cold. I stumbled backwards out the door. I camped a mile away that night, trying to convince myself I was overreacting, but I couldn't shake the dread. Sometime after midnight, I heard crunching outside my tent. Slow, deliberate footsteps circling, just like in a horror movie. I called out, shining my light. Nothing there, but the sound didn't stop. It paced and paced around me for what felt like hours, until finally it faded back into the woods. The next morning, I forced myself to go check the cabin again. I don't know why. Maybe to prove it was really there, but when I retraced my path, the trees didn't look the same. I couldn't find the cabin at all. No clearing. No foundation, no chair, like it had never existed. That should have been my cue to pack up and leave. But I stayed another night. Biggest mistake of my life. Around 2 a.m. I woke up to the sound of wood dragging across dirt like furniture scraping a floor. The sound was coming from outside my tent. But when I unzipped it and looked out, I realized it wasn't outside at all. It was coming from the trees deeper in the woods, like the cabin was being dragged closer piece by piece. I didn't sleep after that. I sat clutching my rifle, eyes on the dark tree line. When the sun rose, I decided to hike out early. But as I packed my gear, something made my blood run cold. Next to my tent was the chair, the exact same one from the cabin, except now the words carved into it were different. Instead of "do not leave," it said "stay inside." The letters fresh, like they had been carved just hours ago. I lost it. I screamed into the forest, demanding to know who was messing with me. My voice just echoed back, no answer. Then from deep in the trees I heard a man's voice whisper my name. Jason, slow and guttural, like it was being dragged across broken glass. I ran. I didn't even care about my gear. I grabbed my rifle and sprinted through the trees. Every branch felt like it was clawing at me. I didn't stop until I hit the trail. And even then I swore I heard someone walking just behind me, matching my footsteps when I finally made it back to my truck. There were muddy handprints smeared across the driver's side window. 5 long fingers streaked down the glass like something had been watching from inside, waiting for me. I drove straight to the ranger station and demanded to know if anyone had reported a cabin in that section. They looked at me like I was crazy. They swore there were no structures, no ruins, nothing in that area. I took them back a week later, but of course we found nothing, just endless trees to this day in 2024. I still dream about that chair. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and swear I hear wood dragging across my floor. I haven't hunted alone since, and I never will again. Story 3. The Road That Disappears. My name is Emily. I grew up in a small town in southern Ohio, and there is one story. Everyone here whispers about something we call Hollow Creek Road. It as a stretch of asphalt about 4 miles long, surrounded by woods. People say it doesn't exist on any official map, and if you drive it after midnight, you done it, always come back. I used to think it was just small-town folklore until March of 2024 when I saw it with my own eyes. And I still wish I hadn't. That night, I was driving home from a friend's place. It was past 1 a.m. I know these back roads by heart, but somehow I ended up turning onto a road I swear I had never seen before. The trees closed in on both sides. My radio started crackling with static. My GPS froze, and the air inside the car got thick like I was underwater. A faded sign at the entrance read, Hollow Creek RD, but the letters looked carved instead of painted. I told myself I'd just follow it until I hit the main highway. But the further I drove, the quieter it got. Not just normal quiet. Everything went dead silent, no crickets, no wind. Even my car engine sounded muffled, like it was being swallowed up a mile in. I saw the first thing that made me slam my brakes. There was a car parked on the side of the road, headlights on, doors wide open, but no one inside. The license plate was from Ohio, but the tags expired back in 1998. I got this horrible feeling I was being watched. I rolled past slowly, and as I looked in the rearview mirror, I nearly lost control of the wheel, because now someone was sitting in the driver's seat of that abandoned car, head tilted, staring straight at me, their mouth hanging open, unnaturally wide. I hit the gas, but the road didn't end. I checked my clock. It still said 1:37 a.m. No matter how far I drove, the time wouldn't change. Then I noticed the trees along the road went to right. Every so often one of them had a face carved into it, deep jagged slashes, 2 hollow eyes, a screaming mouth, and I swear the faces were different every time. I looked like they were shifting when I blinked. My phone buzzed out of nowhere, one single text message. No number, no contact, just words glowing on the screen. Turn around. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped it, but when I glanced up in the mirror again, I realized I couldn't turn around anymore because the road behind me was gone, just endless blackness. Swallowing the tail lights, I started crying, gripping the wheel knuckles white. Then the radio cut through the static. A voice I recognized. It was my mother's voice, but wrong, flat and distorted, saying my name over and over. Emily, come home, Emily, come home, Emily, come home. The thing is, my mum had died 3 years ago. I floored it, desperate to reach the end. Suddenly headlights appeared ahead, another car coming fast. I swerved, barely missing it, but when I looked out the window, I saw my own car fly past me. Same make, same color, same dent on the fender. Except inside, it wasn't me driving. It was a girl who looked exactly like me, her face, pale eyes, black like ink. That's when the road itself started breaking apart. The asphalt crumbling into nothingness, chunks falling away into the dark. I could see shapes moving down there, long thin arms reaching up from the void, trying to grab the wheels of my car. I screamed and kept driving until suddenly the trees broke, and I was back on my normal route, just like nothing had happened. The clock on my dash now read 3:04 a.m. When I pulled into my driveway, I thought it was over. But there on my front porch sat a sign, an old wooden road sign, the exact same one I saw at the start. Except now the letters weren't carved, they were burned into the wood. Hollow Creek RD. The next morning I went back to find it, but of course there was no road, no sign, just woods, like it had never been there at all. I've never driven alone at night since, and I don't think I ever will again, because sometimes I hear static on my car radio, and faintly beneath it a voice whispering my name, telling me to come home.